Mustafa is the Palestinian Director for Women International. She joins us live now from Hebron in the occupied West Bank. Good to have you on the programme. So, you were seeing it just there, and we all know it. Catastrophic hunger, famine. Gazans have suffered so much, almost total devastation of their land. Famine, which we have seen has affected children also so badly. But is there now a sense of relief that finally people may be able to get some kind of nutrition?
Thank you for having me, first of all. And yes, there's a sense of relief that, first of all, that the bombing stopped. And this is the first step that every Palestinian in Gaza has been dreaming of for 2 years, even though there was a ceasefire early this year, but actually it didn't last long. So yes, people have actually, between fear and hope, it's actually breathing side by side, unfortunately, since they have experienced a break of ceasefire before, and they don't know what the future holds for them. But towards the end of the day, this morning, families have been going back to their homes in Gaza, or what left from their homes in Gaza. 200,000 Palestinians managed to return, and that actually gives a lot of hope. So women in particular, who are actually part of the program that we're targeting women in Gaza, have reported that despite actually the buzzing has stopped, the bombardment has stopped, but we don't know what the future holds. And the first thing that they are thinking of is actually how to access medical services, how to access food, and how to rebuild their homes that has been destroyed by the constant bombardments for 2 years.
So we know that the UN, of course, says that it has a 60-day plan, and as soon as they get the green light, they're going to go into the Gaza Strip. But what's yours? What's the starting point for you, given the widespread destruction and there's so many issues that have arisen out of this war, of course?
Actually, the first step for us is actually reviewing what are the programs that we already established in Gaza for the past 2 years, making sure that our programs continue to be relevant, particularly that we target widowed women, orphan children, and women who are receiving our psychosocial support via national partners in Gaza. But most importantly, actually thinking about how actually to take them into a journey of healing and recovery, and ensuring that aid, where we expect 600 trucks of aid will be entering into Gaza on a daily basis, are reaching to those in need. And as part of our programs, we are supporting the operation of a community kitchen, which eventually now, with the more goods getting into Gaza, prices will eventually get much more reasonable so that people can buy these items. Organizations who are operating community kitchen can also afford the ingredients and the cost for operating community kitchens. But additional to that, in these 60 days, we must actually make sure that women are consulted about how their future should look like. Their voice about the day after and the aftermath, eventually, fire, are incorporated. Talking about also women with this huge number of amputees in Gaza is catastrophic. Like, we have been hearing reports about the mass disability crisis in Gaza. So there should be some efforts to address the issue of healthcare for women, but also for the wounded people. Like, tens of thousands of Gazans are wounded without receiving essential medical aid. So we hope that the next 60 days will make sure that people receiving the medical aid they need, food items at scale. Women also with their traumatic experiences, who have been holding families together for a long time, alone, without any support, to get the healing they need and the support they need on a daily basis, whether by social communities or NGOs or also the UN agencies that are operating in the area.
Well, let me just ask you this then, with so much to be done, how hopeful are you that this peace can hold, and that it is also inclusive of all Gazans?
It's actually a cautious hope that we don't know, in fact, if the parties to the conflict really would take concrete steps toward fulfilling their commitments. And if the international community, of course, has a responsibility. It has not ended. The declaration of the ceasefire on Gaza is the spring board, where everyone should continue to monitor the situation. It's not only about ending the war now, but also the day after is very important. Where are the people who will be consulted? there is a reparation, there is a process for justice, and into the same vicious cycle of violence. We are carefully actually witnessing what's going on in Gaza and the West Bank, since we have witnessed a recognition of the Palestinian statehood across different European countries, and that actually gives us a lot of hope. But does that actually end the story that there is an occupation in West Bank and Gaza? It's also that a reminder that 58% of the Gaza Strip is still under the Israeli military control. So we are hopeful that there will be some sort of a solution and end to the violence. But most importantly is the complete cessation of all operations in Gaza, and also lifting the blockade that the West Bank, where I currently live, we are experiencing on a daily basis, with hundreds of checkpoints and barriers disconnecting Palestinian villages and cities and camps from one another, which also creating a situation of facts on the ground that the potential establishment of the Palestinian state is actually collapsing before our eyes. So but when we work with women, actually, we get a lot of hope, because it's actually our point of departure, that we work with people on the aspiration that injustice would end towards the end of the day. But if the environment around women is not changing and the oppression is not lifted, the blockade on Gaza, the current situation, the West Bank, if it continues as it is, actually, we should be much more careful. And it's also a reminder to everyone around the world that they should not stop talking about Gaza and the West Bank at the same time, because the ceasefire is not the end of the occupation. So we need to keep up the great work and the recognition of the Palestinian state as an integral part of the activism.
Amani, we're going to have to leave it there. But as you say, hope is always at least a good starting point for change. Good luck with everything. Amani Mustafa, the Palestinian Director for Women International.